Hey everyone, I'm Charlie. We're back on the XJ project this time. And as you remember, we're doing tons on the front and rear, and we're finally getting the butter knife out and cutting this thing up. In order to fit these massive 42-inch tires, we already kind of did the experiment on the other side. So I already went ahead and drew out that line, but I'll give you a quick refresher on how this actually kind of goes. Just really similar to how I did my J. First things first, you have to make sure you actually see this at least in full bump, so you have your minimum for what bump stops are needed. Okay, with the tire on now, as you can see, we're using the longest shock possible to get as much travel out of this as possible. We went ahead at full bump, and you can see it condensed all the way down. We have our bump stops measured out, and as you can see, there's a small bit of a gap. That's because we don't have our soft tip in there yet, which this does end up squeezing all the way down very minimally. So you will end up making contact with what we currently have set up. As you can see from this side, the actual cut looks like it's way more than needed. But we're gonna go ahead and flex this out quick so you can see why we had to go so far. So the bump stop that we're running on this is 7.5 inches. And as you can see, fully flexed out, we're making metal on metal contact on the actual spring pad, which is worst case scenario. But along with that, you can see over at the shock itself, it's not quite fully collapsed yet. Now, if you actually see the cut line, the more you change your bump stop, the more you end up flexing. We already cut out a lot and we didn't want to go even higher with this. So we went ahead and left it at 7.5 inches. It could be 6.5 inches. But that's just not where we want it to be, since the door jamb itself is so close and so thin. And obviously now that we're flexed out, you can see how much more room this tire eats up because of how big it is at 42 inches. I mean, we're only using 3/4 of a gap compared to at full bump, we were 7. So before we go ahead and actually start digging into this, the interior is already out, so we don't start any fires. But I'll show you on this side and what we actually decided to do. So we went ahead and we split the wheel well, like we've seen a lot of other people have done, and it's been fairly popular to do, other than just cut out the full wheel well. We went ahead and we split it, measured it 8.5 inches, and then we tacked in, and we made a filler panel that then we tacked in afterwards, stretching this entire wheel well out, allowing for that fixture. Now this is the easier side compared to this side with the filler neck and fuel door on the outside of the vehicle too, because we want to make sure that that fuel door didn't need relocated or any weird thing to go on. A lot of people, whenever they fit bigger tires, they will end up just doing a simple fuel cell, and that's another easy thing to do. We wanted to still leave the stock tank in here. We didn't want to raise up the tank, or maybe the owner does later in his own time, but this gives him more options and more flexibility later on. With the plastic out of the way, there's kind of a lot going on. We're gonna go ahead and get the seatbelt itself unbolted, get all these wires out of the way so they're not messed with. And then with this fuel door and stretching this wheel well 8.5 inches, this corner is practically gonna be on the other side of the neck. So we're either gonna go ahead and cut this short and mount it flush to this, or we might actually just make a new protection box on the inside of the wheel well. We don't know yet. We'll come across that bridge when we get there. So I'm unplugging the tail light from that center plug. We're gonna pull this back through. Second and fourth should be your defrost and your rear brake light. There we go. Then we'll have this tucked to the side, since all of our welding and stuff's gonna happen to the other, and we don't have to refish this all the way through. And this is the main harness, and we'll just loop it all the way back. Now that we got the harness out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and make sure that this area is all clean for our weld line. So I'm actually gonna just strip off most of this with the wire wheel. I also gotta get through all this sealant here on the floor so that we can get a nice clean cut on the bottom. All right, now that the mess is all cleaned up, we're gonna go ahead and enter a cut with a fresh blade right along the seam, and then try your best to make as straight of a Sharpie line as you can all the way down. This is the closest to the actual top tangent of the arch itself. We're gonna cut that out, cut this, and then we're going to move on the outside and actually get everything moving so we can get this whole arch replaced over. All right, now that everything's done on the inside, we're gonna go ahead and cut this fender lip that actually combines the pieces of steel together. That way the inner fender will be free. And this is our finish line we wanna bend to. So when we do cut, we'll cut lower and then pie cut it so we can get as close to that arc as we can get. As you saw on the inside, I approached it at a different angle so I could keep as much of this original material as I can. You can obviously go ahead and actually split it when you do your wheel well and change this entire piece out yourself. For us, we're leaving as much material as we can have, so then we can fold this behind our pieces and overlay these small little pie cuts to it. So then we have a better overlap piece of metal and actually weld through and not blow through. And now we got a hole. There we go. All right, now that this wheel tub's out of the way, you can go ahead and mark out your distance. We're stretching our tub 8.5 inches, and then you can use this as a template when you're recutting that curve. So you'll just place it on your mark, lean it over, sketch what you need, you can cut it. Unfortunately, because the filler neck's in our way and we're stretching our wheel tub so far, we're going to cut the outside first, place the tire on our axle, and because our axles are 72 inches wide, we have a lot more vacancy in the corner, but we still need to see where that tire lands so we know how far away from the filler neck we are. From there, we might need to do something different, create new back plating to protect. Who knows? We'll see when we get there. I'm going to use that for a filler piece. So here's the fun part. And don't worry about how it doesn't look like an arc. You can hammer it out, it'll turn out just fine. But it's a lot of prep work. You need to come in and actually grind this metal off because you're going to be adding your tacks all the way to that edge. And that's the best way I found to actually fill it, grind it, and make it look good. Or else you'll have what happened on my Jeep happen. A lot of paint cracking, any other previous bodywork that was hidden there already. It's going to show through. And we don't want that on this. We want this thing to look as good as it wheels. And it's going to wheel fantastically. All right, now that we cut everything out, we do need to flex this tire in and see if we need to take anything more. We did find out though, once we cut this relief in here, we are able to bend this in and close that gap as much as we can after you massage it a little bit. We'll still have some overhang. We'll get that trimmed so we have a nice plug, and then we'll bend everything back. But let's get this tire up in here, see how much more we might need to take out or we might not. Metal on metal. Groovy. All right, perfect. As you can see, we definitely need to bend those tabs back, but our finish line is going to work out exactly where we want it to. We do still need to cut this tab off, but we'll worry about that in a little bit. More importantly, for that filler neck, this is going to be just enough room so then that tire has nothing to worry about. And we'll get that little bit of a shark tooth cut off, and we will start fitting this wheel well against the rest of this neck to make it as nice as possible. Get a couple more on the other side. Sweet. All lines up. We got plenty of room for a breather and our fill neck. I'm happy with that. We'll work out a nice little shroud to actually hide the rubber tubes later. But all in all, let's get that wheel well in. All right, now that we actually have everything cut, we went ahead and put in the fender. We started kind of massaging everything out, lining it up from our 8.5 inch spot. And as you can see, we still have a little bit more trimming to do over here, but we also have to take it out and pre-clean everything. So looking at it from the inside, we went ahead and ended up cutting off a lot of that tail section, and then we're gonna flatten it out and just tack it straight to the side of the actual housing. All right, so after we got the first couple tacks in, we're just gonna be pressing on this to actually close that gap. As you can see, we're just gonna make sure that there's good contact so then I can get that tacked in and closed up. All right, so this is our approximate cut line that we wanna do. However, because we also need to cut the box behind it, we need to go ahead and unbolt this door. We have two T25 bit screws in there. Got number 2. Alrighty, so after we had this cut out, I went ahead and made a paper template that actually kind of fit somewhat near the hole, made the actual piece slightly bigger than that, so then when I tacked it in, I could actually take any type of hammer I had and just start to bring it up to that original line that I wanted. Now that we have that tacked in place, we can re-bolt on that fuel door after we had it trimmed and then see how that lines up. Obviously, we want a semi-close gap to how it was factory, just so, at least from the eye, from 20 feet away, it looks okay. Other than that, everything else is coming up in play really well. With the rest of the fender liner, we need to create a patch panel for this back corner here, along with a patch panel for this bottom section. And then we're gonna have our final patch panel right here in the center. All right, so once the fuel door is in there centered, it's really not too bad. I can go ahead and hammer this out just a little bit higher to match that line, but I think we're golden. All we're going to do now is go ahead and actually tack all these fingers to the inner wheel well itself. I went ahead and just pushed this as far over as we can so it can hold the outside of the body now to it. All right, so for the centered section, this is just a scrap piece that we had. I went ahead and cut it out, cleaned up all the edges, and we're gonna use this for the actual filler piece. Just make sure you have some type of overlap. It makes welding a lot easier, especially if you're not doing the same exact gauges. We're gonna go ahead and bend a 1-inch flange that we're just gonna set on the bottom here. Then we're gonna add our own radius, whether it's against a 5-gallon bucket or the side of the tire. Heck, my thigh if I really need, anything I can. Test fit it, so then we get as similar of an arc as we can, then we'll just tack everything in. Not too far off. Definitely have excess metal, which I would highly prefer to have. Easier to cut a little bit at a time than trying to add in more. All right, now that we got the floor jack in here, it's holding up the bottom of this little flange we made nice and tight to the floor. We're just gonna tack the corners and then slowly apply pressure and bend this and tack as we go. So as I was talking about earlier, just trying to work this curve in. All you have to do is press it, close that gap as much as you can, and then you'll end up tacking it. All right, so with our new product for this rocker chop here, we're actually going to use this for that filler piece, especially because we need such a big section to actually fill right underneath the fill neck. We're going to go ahead, we already made the marks, but we're making our cuts. We have our bend line corner there too, and then we're just going to go ahead and start that bend, see how it looks. Probably take this flange off. All right, so after we had the patch panel, we ended up just button bending what we could once we got a really close degree to where our cut was originally. And then we went ahead and cut everything out to fit around that filler neck section. From here, we're gonna go ahead and tack in this entire back section so it's nice and tight and we know that's not gonna move anywhere. And then we'll start to bend this and flex it up to close all of our little gaps. Alrighty, so as you can see, it is a lot of work. End of the day though, now we can actually get this thing flexed up to what we want for this kit. On top of that, everything we have is tacked in. It's ready for our professional welder to come in and get the finished seams going, and then back to me to do a lot of grinding for finish work. We'll do a recap on that later on when we do have that. We're gonna wait for that though when we also have the front cut with it. As you can see, we ended up making a couple different cardboard templates, filling in our gaps, and then getting everything welded and tacked in. This fuel door itself actually turned out a lot better than we want. I still got to fix a little bit of the gapping, but overall, filler neck still fits. Everything works perfectly fine, and you can still access your tubes. We'll come up with another shroud later on, or you can just run it like this, depending how you are. I know those factory XJs, those things are already missing or rusted out at that point. But all in all, it actually went a lot easier than we both thought. Yeah, let's flex this thing out a little bit. This thing's gnarly. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.